Yeah, well, that was shot camera. What I wanted to show you is so it has a low footprint, both it's a small box and it has a very quick setup. If you use paper wrappers for the enemies, for the 69 action cards, I have a simple paper wrapper solution, and that is already shuffled or needs shuffling. There are skill cards. These also have to be shuffled sometimes or are already shuffled. When do you get the skill card? That is, if your experience starts at 0, but as you gain experience by defeating enemies or by completing certain events, you pass this threshold with a hand, and the hand is also given here, and then you can get a single use skill. There are, I think, 24 or something, a lot of variation, and you can use them on several parts to ease your suffering through the through the dungeon. If you manage to defeat with much ease the Rune's Deathbinder, there is descent modifiers to make it more difficult, and the way to play is with so-called increase difficulty. You choose one, you draw one at random, so you might be restless for the duration of the whole dungeon crawl. So the 4 passes, this is valid for you. So every time you rest, you gain 2 blight. Blight is, as we already discussed, not a helpful aspect. Then, why would you defeat a boss? Well, the bonus for defeating a boss is to immediately gain a special action card. These you also shuffle and draw one every time you defeat a boss. So for the first level boss, which is paired, once you defeat one, you immediately can use the drawn special action card. And these cards are usually pretty powerful, so you don't want to get to lose them, which will be discussed later. Another great feature of Rune's Deathbinder is that there's a lot of variation. There's not only enemies, but there's also events. These events I can show. These are also, it's very useful to use a paper wrapper for needs shuffling. Once you are down or done with it, or if it's already shuffled, you can immediately start playing. This is a pretty thick deck of cards, so you can get, for example, a room of corpses, and then there is, I lied a bit, there is a die. Sometimes you have to roll, it's a 50% chance, and here you, if you're lucky, you remove 3 blight, which makes future combats easier. There is also the type ambush. Well, it's written also here. An ambush is an event enemy that you have to combat. event enemies are different than normal enemies, so it's also a variation of the theme. These are double-sided, so it's very easy to find them. They don't get shuffled, they get referred to by their name, so you don't ever have to shuffle it. They come in two shapes. The normal version, like the normal enemy or boss, and the corrupted version. The corrupted version is does 2 damage in melee, so that's the melee tier here, and here, okay, so it gives more experience, but is harder to defeat. 9 versus 6. It's a bit debated if it is a constant effect or not, but it gets into effect once your blight track has reached the red levels. So here, normal, nothing happens, and here, from here on, if you draw an event and it has an ambush, then you have to turn it to its corrupted side. The rulebook says player can change to the corrupted side, and if you corrupt in the so-called corrupt mechanics, then every enemy that is in front of you gets turned to the corrupted side. I think that's more thematic, and another indication that, well, there is blight, and blight is an active and alive, tangible force in the game. So this is what. So the event enemies get triggered from the event in the event deck. I discussed the skills. Yeah, so what is useful is that because it's every time you reach a hand symbol, it's also the first time only that you draw a skill card. So it's useful to start a game with a block here. So once you reach the block, the white indicates that you need to draw a skill card, and you place it to the next not yet reached hand symbol. So if you ever go over it and in the rest phase you pay experience, for example to remove a card or to buy an action card, then it goes down again. Also, if you raise your tier level, for example you go to character level 2, you have a spell tier that goes to 2, or max attacks, a tier that goes from 3 to 4 to 5. Then you have to pay experience. The experience is written under it. So if you go down and up again, you know that you don't draw another skill card. That's an easy quality of life improvement. Well, what else to say about it? Yeah, so one of the events is that you can get caved in. So you're happily going through the dungeon, you resolve a combat, and then you decide to go here and you resolve this adventure token, and so on. This is of course fixed, so you can find your optimal, the smartest path. Once you gain this action, once you resolve the adventure token, you draw it to its side, and if it has a side quest, you can place a side quest token unless it's already there. And the side quests gives you also sometimes less blight, or in this case a skill card that's is helpful. You once you meet the condition, you can gain it immediately. So draw 3 enemies in an encounter. That presumes that you have 3 blight, so you wouldn't choose it if you are in the early stages of the game, because you have to wait then a while. There can be only one side quest active at any one time. If you draw another one by resolving all the adventures on an adventure token, then you can replace it. So for example here, resolve token with 2 events. First you resolve the adventure token, and then you place it on its side. In the side quest zone, as it's called, and you activate the side quest. This side quest cannot refer to what you just resolved, because that's already happened. You have to resolve a token from now on with 2 events. Okay. So yeah, the unique selling features of this game are reasonable price, small table footprint, endless variation, because of the way the map is built. You can play with 2 people. Most dungeon crawlers have either 1 person are solo, or are explicitly 2 or more handed. The rules are pretty simple. Once you have the companion and the updated rulebook, the variation is not only in how you progress through the dungeon, but also in the shuffling of the leveled enemies, in the shuffling of the action cards that you draw, and the shuffling of the events, and the shuffling of the skills, and the shuffling of the special action deck. So what's an actual game round look like? For example, this is very small, but on a normal table, 70 by 70 centimeters, it's very easy to play. So you choose an event. For example, you choose an adventure token with an exclamation mark first. So that's an event. Event deck. You draw the first event. Okay, Room of Corpses. You need to roll a die. You roll a die. It's a V. I removed 3 blight, but I didn't have blight. Well, I now do have blight. Wait. 1, 2, 3. So this is done. Then rest. Rest is heal wounds, increase immunity, buy action card, remove card. Say I want to the base immunity. One of the other features. Let's stay there. One of the other features is the so-called vulnerability. Vulnerability is in this game you don't deal damage, you receive damage, and the multiplier that you receive damage by is the base damage times the value of your vulnerability. So if you have a vulnerability of 2 times, let's say 2 times or 3 times. So if you're vulnerable to melee, this is with melee, this is a spell. There are only 2 elements here. If you're vulnerable to melee by 2, if an enemy does damage to you, it does damage in one of the 2 ways. So here you have the X, the crossed swords, and you can also have a spell thing. So if you are facing the defect in his turn, he does 1 times your multiplier damage to you. So that's pretty dangerous to have a vulnerability of ×3. So if you ever get a vulnerability of 3, you want to go to rest as soon as possible, because you want to increase your immunity. That is decreasing your vulnerability. And you can also increase the vulnerability of an enemy. There are certain action cards, and if you have them in your hands, then you can increase the vulnerability of the enemy that you're facing, and the future melee attacks will then be more effective. There's a little bit of administration involved, because you have these wound tokens, 1 for 1 and the other side for 5. So you have to per enemy keep track of that, but I didn't find it a nuisance in the slightest. Enemies have also skill. Enemies are resolved left to right completely. First the leftmost and then the one next to it. When it is its turn, it does the skill first, if it's an active skill. Some skills are passive. And then it does the attack. It attacks as written under the name, and when it is defeated, it gives this experience. It's as simple as that. It's only very poorly explained in the rulebook. Certain events can also, that's also a nice unique feature of this game, can cause you to get caved in. Let me find you. So if you events are not good. They are more dangerous than actual enemies. So, for example, a cave-in type event card says place tokens on A3, B6 and C5. What the hell is that? Well, all these things have coordinates, except the boss thing. The boss thing has an adventure token, but it's never touched by the cave-in event. But the cave-in event can cause you, say you are on A3, happily resolving the adventure. So you go from left to in the order stated. So you try to complete A3, and this only works if I set it up properly. So this is not completely random, but random enough. And let me see, everything is covered and there are some left, so you also have variation in what you draw. Now, for the if you are on A1 and you draw this event, then you place a cave-in token on A3. You don't remove the adventure token, but you place it because there are skills that let you remove the cave-in token, and then you have the newly unobstructed path again available. Then B6, so this is the B6, and C5. It must be here. And every time you place a token, a cave-in token, you need to check if you can still reach the boss. Now here I can still reach the boss, that's not a problem. But if in a later turn, no, no, and the artwork is of course irrelevant, but the artwork is very nice. This game has been produced with a lot of love. There are not so many. Decision, ambush, discovery. No, for a long time you won't have be bothered cave-in. Okay. This cave-in is a place impossible caved-in tokens on B1 and B2 spaces. Let's see B1. I can still reach the boss, so this is a valid placement. And B2, yeah, I can still reach the boss. No problem at all. Discovery, ambush, I can cave in. Okay.